Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight for the 2022 Idaho Republican Primary Candidate Forum. My name's Daniel Silver, and I'll be your host for this evening. First, I know you had a lot of things you could be doing tonight, and we want to thank you for joining us. It's a really important thing that we're going to be watching tonight. We're going to be meeting with every single candidate who's running for statewide and federal office. And that person has the opportunity to represent you and me and all of Idaho for the next 2, 4, or even 6 years, depending upon the position. It's not something we should take lightly. So what we're going to be doing is sitting down for about 10 minutes with each of them tonight, and we're going to hear what's on their heart, learn a little bit about them, learn where they think things are going well or not within Idaho, and if given the opportunity, where would they take us in the future. Now, before we start, though, it's important to know that as an organization, Idaho Young Republicans does not endorse any candidate during the primary season. That's not our role. Instead, we want to make sure that you're as informed as you can be. And so that's our hope, that you get an opportunity tonight to learn about each and every candidate, and then you know what's best for you and your family. You know what's best to take you into the future. We just hope we can make that decision a little easier for you. So next we're going to transition to Lieutenant Governor, and for those of you who aren't aware, it's kind of like a fancy way of saying the Vice President of Idaho. That's kind of the second in command, and really important role. Obviously has to step in if anything happens to the governor. And the first candidate we're going to be talking with here is Priscilla Giddings. So Priscilla, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Daniel.
So let's just pretend people don't know who you are, although I'm sure they do. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I grew up in a Christian family here in Idaho. My mom was in education for 30 years. My father was in law enforcement for 50 years. And I just had a strong desire to serve in the military. We had the chance to live in Israel when I was a kid. I witnessed terrorism firsthand, and I quickly realized that freedom is a thing worth fighting for. And so I made it a goal to go to the Air Force Academy, and we moved back home to Idaho Falls and then up to Riggins. That's where I graduated from high school. And then I went off to the Air Force Academy. From there, went off to pilot training, got to fly the A-10 Warthog, and then transitioned into the MC-12. Spent nearly 1,000 combat hours in Afghanistan and saw, friends from right here in Idaho give up their life in the fight for freedom for the Afghanis. And I quickly realized that, while we were fighting for their freedom, we were slowly losing some of those freedoms like fair elections and the rule of law right here in Idaho. And so I felt called to get involved in politics locally. So I came back home, transitioned into the Idaho Air National Guard, and then into the Air Force Reserves. I'm currently a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserves, and then jumped into the legislature. I've been a legislator for the last 6 years. And let's see, my first year in the legislature, met the love of my life, a fourth-generation farmer from Glens Ferry, and we have 2 little girls. So we're busy.
So obviously the resume you're just talking about, but what makes you uniquely qualified for Lieutenant Governor?
Yeah. So I would say primarily my leadership experience, having served now over 20 years in the military. I've traveled to 30 different countries, I've worked with NATO allies, and have a lot of experience how to be an officer in the military and how to lead with integrity. And also I'd say my conservative voting record. In the legislature over the last 6 years, I have a 97% conservative voting record with the American Conservative Union. And I think we need someone who's going to fight for conservative values here in Idaho. I've pledged to support the Republican platform, our state Republican platform, unlike my opponent. But I think we still need leadership, conservative Republican leadership in the executive branch.
So we talked about the executive branch a little bit. I think there's upwards of 7 or 8 candidates running for governor right now. Difference of opinion left and right on different things. How do you go about working with the governor, whoever that person might be?
Yeah, as I was mentioning with my experience working with military professionals all over the world, I can work with anyone, and I look forward to working with whoever Idahoans elect to be our next governor. I hope it's a strong conservative and that we can lead this state to be a conservative state like Florida with strong conservative values. However, the role of lieutenant governor is a little bit different in Idaho. It's dual-hatted. The first role is to be the presiding officer over the state senate, and the second role is to be the acting governor when the governor can't fulfill the duties. Nowhere in there does it say that the two are always going to be working together, or that it's necessarily a partnership like in other states where they run on the same ticket. In Idaho, they're different tickets. And therefore, my job is to serve the constituents of Idaho and to be a liaison for Idahoans to our governing agencies, not necessarily to be a manager of government and to do whatever the governor says. My role is to serve Idahoans.
So within that, there's a lot going on across Idaho, a lot going on across the world and America these days. What would you say are the two of the biggest issues facing Idahoans? And if Lieutenant Governor, how would you tackle those?
It'd be challenging to narrow it down to two. I serve on the budget committee, so the number one thing that I see and that I'm concerned about is our excessive spending. Just in the last 6 years, we've almost doubled our budget from $6.9 billion to $12.9 billion, and 46% of that is coming from the federal government. And with that comes strings. And so I'm concerned that we need to get away from this excessive federal spending. We had the trillions of dollars of Biden bucks, 21 billion of that is flooding into Idaho. And that's not sustainable. Just this year, we grew government 21% and added 222 employees to state government. In a year of historical inflation, that's not exactly fiscally conservative, and it's not sustainable. So I would say more to focus on our budget and our spending is one of my largest concerns. But then you roll into the other concerns is, of course, our education system. And we're seeing critical race theory at all levels. This year, we've kind of been fighting the indoctrination through different inappropriate and explicit material in library books. And we really need to take a proactive approach to enforce the law, to root that stuff out of Idaho. We had 20 plus teachers who signed a pledge saying they were going to teach critical race theory no matter what the law said. If we had strong leadership like a Governor DeSantis, that wouldn't happen here in Idaho. So we definitely need to enforce the law. And with that, though, I think one of the best ways to strengthen our schools is to have the money follow the child. Just like we see in healthcare, you get to pick your doctor and then the money goes to your doctor. We need to have a similar situation for our schools. And I think that will actually strengthen Idaho schools and help our students to be innovators of the future.
So Idahoans are going to the ballot box in the primaries 1 week from today. What message do you want them to walk away with about you when they walk into those voting booths?
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, the most important election for the future of Idaho. And one of the things we have seen with our concerns with election integrity, Idaho was ranked 38th in the nation with the Heritage Foundation regarding election integrity. My number one thing is to encourage everybody to vote in person. But number two, it's going to get to go vote. There's such a small percentage of Idahoans who are actually voting. Of 1.8 million Idahoans, I bet we'll get about 200,000 that will turn out in the Republican primary. So encourage your family, encourage your friends to get out to the polling location, and then also be an educated voter and look up people's voting histories. I think the American Conservative Union is a strong one to look at, but we need all voters on deck because we've had thousands of Democrats who have registered as Republicans to try to flip our state. We have huge lobby groups spending millions of dollars to try to impact our elections. And so I want voters to be savvy, to vote. Find out more, you can go to my website at gettingsforidaho.com. We are doing an AR-15 gun giveaway. You just have to sign up with your email address. And I hope to earn your vote.
Representative Priscilla Giddings, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Daniel, for the opportunity.
Next, we're going to be speaking with Speaker Scott Bedke. Scott's running for Lieutenant Governor. Scott, thanks for joining us today.
Well, it's my pleasure. This is a great opportunity.
I appreciate it. Well, I'm assuming most do, but let's just assume they don't. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been in the state legislature since the 2001 session. I've been elected Speaker of the House for the last 10 years, so that's the last 5 elections consecutively. But in real life, I think more importantly, I'm a father, a grandfather, and a rancher from Oakley. I am privileged to represent the 4th generation on our family's cattle operation in the in the Magic Valley there. We've been very blessed to live there since the 1870s. Sarah and I have 4 adult children. We have great in-laws, sons and daughters, and between all 4 of them, we have 14 grandkids. So that makes us view the world through their eyes and wanting to have our grandkids have the same opportunities that their great-grandparents had. And so I kind of view everything more generational than just the next year or 2.
So, Lieutenant Governor, kind of like the Vice President of Idaho, right? 1 second away from being in charge. What makes you uniquely qualified for this role?
Well, for the last 10 years, I've been the Speaker of the House, and under my leadership, under my leadership, we have created the best state in the union to live, to work, and to raise a family. Everything that has made Idaho great has made Idaho a destination state, if you want to call it that. Every one of those good ideas has either started in my office or come across my desk. So we didn't fall to the top of this heap. We worked our way, and it's been through years of conservative Republican leadership in the legislature that has created this foundation upon which we build now. And we've been discovered, and there's no going back. And so I believe my direct involvement, being more results-oriented than rhetoric-oriented, makes me uniquely qualified for this position. I have the most experience. I have the most knowledge on the issues I believe that face Idaho. And besides that, I've worked with 3 governors before. We create a working relationship, and I think that working relationship serves Idaho well.
So if you think about Idaho the last few years, much like the rest of the world, right? COVID, all these things are going on. Some really great things, some really tough things. As you look forward to the future, what do you see as like the 2 biggest challenges facing Idahoans today, and how would you tackle those as Lieutenant Governor?
Well, I believe the biggest challenge will be how we manage growth. Like I said earlier, we have been discovered. And so that's going to make there be increased competition for everything that, every government service that we have, whether it's our school systems, whether it's our road and bridge system, whether it's our water systems, delivery systems. Agriculture is still a major driver in our state's economy, and how we conserve the water in our rivers and our aquifers will largely drive the economies, particularly in the southern part of the state. So I believe that those will be our challenges going forward. I think that some of the challenges are from outside of our state. I think that the flawed border policies that led in unchecked immigration, but all of the problems that come with that. The fentanyl issue is blowing up before our eyes, and including here in Idaho. I've been appointed to the Esto Perpetua working group to come up with some solutions and bring back some recommendations to next year's legislature, as well as the governor this year, on how we check this fentanyl. That is making worse all of the existing drug problems. And it doesn't seem to me like we're going to be able to arrest our way out of this. This is going to be a multi-pronged approach. We're going to have an educational component. We're going to have a law enforcement component, et cetera. And so those are 2 of the biggest challenges I think that we'll face is growth and how we react to that, but then also these outside influences that are coming into our state. And many of these influences are not positive on the Idaho values that we have baked into the way we do things here in the state.
I think right now there's about 8 candidates for governor. And all have different personalities, different thoughts, not better or worse, just different.
Right.
As Lieutenant Governor, knowing that, how do you build that relationship with the governor? You mentioned you've worked for 3 of them. How do you go about doing that to bring all Idahoans together?
Well, we've got to keep in mind who we work for as elected officials, and and the answer is our constituents. And so after the election, we need to put our shoulder to the wheel and work for Idaho. And I believe I've proven that I can work with just about anyone, frankly, in the 20 years that I've been in the legislature. We don't always agree, but there are so many things that we do agree on. And I think we build on those agreements. You know, everybody wants their kids well educated. Everybody wants the lightest touch of government in their lives. And how we get there, of course, is where the divergence starts. But those greater things unite us. And I think with that overlap of our positions, we can, we ought to be able to come up with some common solutions. Frankly, I am committed to working with whomever is elected as the governor. In Idaho, of course, we don't run on a ticket, and so I mean that's just part of the job. You work with whoever the people select, and I'm committed to doing that, and I believe I have the skill set to do that.
Alrighty, so one last question. Idahoans are heading into the primary voting booths here a week from today. They're going to make up their mind. What do you want them to walk away with from tonight before they head in there?
Well, I think that they need to understand that I've been elected Speaker of the most conservative legislative body in the nation for the last 5 consecutive terms. I have proven results. I lean less on rhetoric and more on results. And it doesn't matter which area we think that we'll have conflict going forward, whether it's education. I've spent time on the education committees. I've carried the education budget. I have 14 grandkids that are either in public schools or soon to be in public schools. So I have a vested interest in our kids' success. I have a vested interest in conserving our water here in the state. Our economy in my part of the state is heavily dependent on the Snake River and all of the tributaries. And I have a proven track record of mediating those issues and creating solutions that have worked for not only the groundwater pumpers, but also the surface water users. That agreement is in place, and as we look forward into this drier year, that will serve us well as we go forward. I've spent a lot of time on the tax committee, and I understand the tax policy here in the state, including property taxes. And I think that'll be an issue that we'll have to come back to time and time again, because it's important to me that our seniors are able to age in place and not be forced out of their homes because of tax policy here, whether that tax policy originates at the local unit of government and is overseen by the state. The state has an opportunity to ameliorate that, and we should be found doing that. Our state is growing, and we can't let all of this new growth change who we are. We've been careful about putting our Idaho values into policy for all these many years, and we've been discovered. And so it's going to create some challenges, but we're up to that challenge. And I think that I have a proven track record that speaks for itself. As we face these challenges, I think you need someone with experience and a proven track record to keep our state growing and keeping it a state that we can all be proud of.
Speaker Scott Bedke, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we close, there's 2 things I want to remind you of. First, please don't forget to get out there and vote 1 week from today on May 17th. Regardless of who you're voting for, it's important to have your voice heard. That person has an opportunity to represent you and me and the entire state for the next 2, 4, or 6 years, and we need to take that seriously. The last thing is really to remind you that on May 18th, we all need to wake up, regardless of who wins the primary, and support that candidate. For all the differences, for all the uniqueness that God made with each of us, we're still one Republican Party. We have way more in common than we have apart. And so no matter who wins, I want to ask you to rally behind them, just like we will with Idaho Young Republicans, just like we will with the state party. And we're going to get out there and do everything we can to help that candidate win the election in November. That's how we keep conservative values alive in the state. That's how we keep Idaho red. For all that, I want to say thank you again. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care, God bless, and God bless Idaho.